Today, as we dive fin too deep with myself and Neal Driscoll, the Miami Dolphins introduced their new defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, to the media. We'll go over all the key takeaways and notes from the press conference. Also, we'll talk about it. In the end, did the Miami Dolphins lose the Tyreek Hill trade? Also, is Chris Grier under the most pressure he's ever faced as Miami Dolphins GM heading into this season? We will talk about all of that and so much more. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Let's get into this.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jaylen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, that open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it over a touchdown. He's in. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jaylen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good at your boy Reason? We're back here for another one as I am joined by my co-host for Fin Too Deep, Neal Driscoll, and we got a lot to discuss today as Anthony Weaver was finally introduced to the public. Kind of came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, like an hour before his press conference, there was tweets that, oh yeah, by the way, here we go. So we'll get into all that because, man, impressive press conference from Anthony Weaver. And I will go out and I will say this, all right, for taking a chance on someone who, let's be honest, is not proven yet at the defensive coordinator position. Man, he left you coming away from that press conference very encouraged moving forward. We'll talk about all of that. Also, we'll talk about Chris Grier. Is he under the most pressure he's ever faced as GM with all of the holes he has to supplement and probably not having as much of a talented roster as he did last year, but the expectations are even higher now. And then, you know, hey man, we got a lot to cover tonight. So, and we're going to talk about the Tyreek Hill trade because I think that is something that needs to be discussed and some, context needs to be given to that situation, not just hindsight. But Neal, how are you feeling? The Bears, they're over here cutting Cody Whitehair, Eddie Jackson, making a whole bunch of moves because, hey, legal tampering opens on March 11th, I believe it is. So we are less than a month away from that. And I'm sitting here watching the Bears clear all this cap, over $50 million of cap in one shot or whatever it was in one shot. And we ain't cleared Jack Bo Diddley, bro.
Yeah, and the Bears are one of the teams that I heard was interested in Christian Wilkins. So it's interesting to see they just freed up $23 million today, and they already had a boatload of cap space. But yeah, man, Anthony Weaver, very exciting to see him kind of officially get introduced. It's usually the slow time of year, but because the Dolphins are in the predicament they are with, I think it is salary cap hell and a plethora of other moves to make to kind of make that work. It's going to be as busy as it's ever been in March and February for being a Miami Dolphins fan. I mean, we're still waiting on the quarterback contract. We're waiting on a verdict on Wilkins. We know they have to create $50 million in cap space, and they haven't made a move to save a penny yet. So, yeah, and I see that comment. I got
Neal. I'll tell y'all. Neal told me to come through, but again, now 2 weeks deep, I was home with a sick daughter, so I just was not able to do any of that.
Usually I kind of keep my composure and I try to in those, man. I was getting as heated as I've ever been. It was
What was it about? I don't get it. Like, what was it?
They were trying to say that I was wrong because I said that I think
Who's
that Jaylen
Who's they?
I don't really know them well. One guy is a guy, Sean, that I know that we don't really talk to a lot. But
Are you talking about the guy who Clump found for Fin Fanatic and he
right.
knows nothing about football but tries to act like he knows something about football? Is that the guy?
Yeah. Well, I was just saying that I think Waddle's one of the biggest dogs on this team, period. And I mentioned how he had nothing to play for that LSU game, played with his guts on the line.
Yeah.
And they were telling me that playing through injury doesn't make you a dog because Mike Gesicki did it once. So I like
Mike Gesicki did it once. So now all of a sudden that doesn't make you a dog.
And then I'll get you fired up even more. They were telling me that I was crazy because I think Jaylen Phillips has more potential than anyone on this roster on the defense side of the ball. It was Chubb's better. There's no way in hell you could pay Phillips $20 million a year because he never gotten 10 sacks in a season. They wanted AJ Epinesa, who's got a career high of 6.5 sacks in the season. And it was just one of the.
But like you already told me one of the culprits at hand, and basically this would be like if you were a brain surgeon talking about medicine with a bunch of grocery baggers at your local supermarket. That's basically where we're going at. Because let's be honest, I've said this before about people in this community. I'll say it about these people like Sean and such. Listen, brother. Look up wherever the sewage line runs in the building you're at right now. Look at it, all right? Because you know what? The piece of toilet paper you used earlier with your bodily excrement running through that has more football knowledge running through that sewage system than these people have in their body. And that's a fact.
Would you agree with me on this? Because I think if you had to put on paper today, these are the 5 building blocks of the Miami Dolphins, not just for this year and next year, but for the next 5 years. Wouldn't Phillips and Waddle be on your list?
Yes. Jaylen Waddle is one of the core offensive pieces. Who do they think the heir apparent to Tyreek Hill's throne is? Tyreek ain't seen no $56 million. It's either going to be, hey, buddy, you restructure and we spread that money out in that year, or we move and we elevate. And that's what's going to happen. So.
Well, and then, and it was all about this 10 sack bar. And honestly, like, I don't care about the individual people. Like, you can have your opinions and all this, but like they were utilizing stats. And then I said, well, if you're using stats and one of the statements was made is that Brandon Ayuk was a better receiver than Jaylen Waddle. And I'm not like, I can listen to opinions, but I can't listen to just lunacy. And I don't know if you even knew this. Ayuk's played 15 more games in his career because he was drafted a year ahead of Waddle. He's only got 526 more receiving yards than Waddle, and he only has 7 more touchdowns. Like, honestly, it's not my. I honestly don't even think it's close, and I do think there's something that Waddle can even take to the next level. I expected maybe even a little bit more from him this year, but like with that said, I like when you look at this roster. Waddle and Phillips are the least of my problems. I think Jaylen Phillips was the best player in our defense before he got hurt last year. I really do. So it is what it is, man. Everyone can have their own opinion. It was heated though, man. And I saw Knight saying he was in there. It got heated, man. I was in there for longer than I've been in a space in a long time. But man,
all right, can I just say something now?
I'm not going to take Waddle slander, man.
Who's ready for this? Let's have some fun. All right, you ready for this?
I am.
All right. Difference of 2 targets. Okay, in the last 2 years, not even 1 year, last 2 years, Jaylen Waddle has had 221 targets. Brandon Ayuk has had 219.
Right.
All right. Jaylen Waddle has more reception yards on less receptions. He has 147. Ayuk has 153. Right. Jaylen Waddle is averaging 16.1 yards per reception. Ayuk's averaging 15.4. Jaylen Waddle is averaging 76.5 yards per game. Brandon Ayuk's averaging 71.4 yards per game. Brandon Ayuk has 15 touchdowns. Waddle has 12. All right. Now let's go even further into this right now. Ayuk's played 2 more games. Okay. Yep. Let's go into that. Okay. So 2 more games. Ayuk healthier this year. Right now, even further. Let's go even further than that. Has Ayuk had to play with Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater and Jacoby Brissett over the
And that was Knight's rebuttal when they said, well, he was hampered because he played with Jimmy G, and that's what Knight rebutted was Skylar Thompson and Jacoby Brissett. It's a very
Oh,
good
Teddy
point.
Bridgewater. Yeah. Like what are we talking about here? I mean, and then let's talk about the rookie year of Jaylen Waddle, where everything was coming within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage because Godsey and Stoodsville didn't know how to utilize that speed and use them in the offense to the point where the end of the season, it was amazing. He got over 1,000 yards because the defense were just collapsing 3 to 4 defenders on the area he was going to, because what were we running? We were running little hooks, little curls, little spot routes, 5 yards out and boom, like screens. This is whole. And listen, I'll say Deebo Samuel is better than Jaylen Waddle right now, but Brandon Ayuk is not better than Jaylen Waddle right now.
I don't even know if Deebo is, man. And I'll say this, one thing that Waddle deals with that no one else in the NFL has to deal with, line up opposite him is the best receiver in the world, right? Like that's what Jaylen Waddle has to deal with. And I think that's one of the things that hampered the Dolphins. The Dolphins have to find a way to utilize the fear of Tyreek Hill to open up Waddle more. I think that's one thing they have to do. But man, I like them, because we've talked about maybe Waddle having some potential unhappiness here, and we've heard those things.
Yeah.
Trading Jaylen Waddle at any point, or letting this guy that you have on your roster at any point at 24 years old with the ability that he has, it's like waving the white flag to me. It's like, I don't care about winning anymore if you move Jaylen Waddle. I think he's that type of player. So yeah, it was a heated debate. I'll be honest, I do like that passion that comes out in that fan base in the debate.
But when you get people who don't know what they're talking about trying to spin narratives, it's like, give me a break.
Yeah, well, I just don't understand. Like, look, I think there's a lot of flaws with the way the Dolphins have been built. I'm not going to act like there hasn't been. It's not perfect. They overpay play. They're not the greatest operational franchise in the league. But, like, Jaylen Waddle and Jalen Phillips are not the two. And I think what stemmed it was when we were talking about fifth-year options. And I was like, you absolutely give Jalen Phillips the fifth option. And the consent, wasn't, Showtime was one in there, kind of like, yeah, you definitely give them the option. But there was a good majority of people that thought I was crazy for giving Phillips the fifth-year option.
Well, it's going to get activated in May. 100. You should have said to them, how much do you want to bet this gets activated in May? Because no one would have ponied up any money because they all know it's getting activated in May. And the smart thing to do, because I covered this on the show yesterday, and I covered this, and this is probably why it was a topic on Spaces today, because I covered it yesterday. You got to get out ahead of Jalen's extension. To me, got to, this is what I said yesterday. You activate his fifth-year option in May, you get a deal done by camp. The reason why you're doing that is because, A, when you break down the numbers, his numbers right now are comparable very much so to what Amari Cooper's been doing in Cleveland over the last 2 years. If you compare them, they basically stack up neck and neck, him and Amari Cooper. Well, so Amari Cooper's making a 5 years, $100 million deal. I think like 40 or 60 million of it is guaranteed. So right now you're going to probably pay Waddle 20 to 24, 25 million. This is why you do it now. If he gets back to the trajectory of year one in this Dolphins offense, where he was clearly a 1B and not a number 2, and he's healthy and not banged up, all that's going to happen is drive up the market. And another thing people need to realize, Jamar Chase is going to get extended.
Right.
Jamar Chase is the clear-cut number 1 in Cincinnati right now.
Right.
Waddle's got better numbers than Jamar Chase over the last 2 years.
Right.
So you want to get his extension done as the top paid number 2 before a guy like Jamar Chase goes out there, or has Justin Jefferson had his deal done yet?
No, he won't sign until they know who the quarterback is.
Exactly. And another guy I brought up yesterday was Justin Jefferson doesn't have his deal done. If these guys reset the market, it's going to drive up his price. And now you're going to be paying a 1 and a 2 crazy money, whereas 20 to 25 right now isn't actually crazy if you go by the market. But Jamar and Justin will drive his asking price up, and you're going to be screwed. And every year we talk about this. What's my biggest pet peeve with Chris Grier? Never gets out ahead of deals. Well, you didn't do it last year with Robert Hunt when I was screaming pivot when Wilkins wasn't working. You didn't do it the year before when I was screaming Wilkins is only $14 to $15 million a year right now. Get it done. And now you got to get it done with Jaylen Waddle. Especially because he's the heir apparent to Tyreek. You cannot get yourself in a position where Tyreek's about to, you don't want to pay Tyreek that money, but then the market, you don't want to pay Tyreek $56 million a year, but then the market just explodes for Jaylen Waddle.
Well, and one thing, that all that for sure. And one other additional thing is, and I texted you this last night, I focused on what restructuring contracts would do to future cap hits, right?
Yeah.
And we would have about $10 to $15 million in space with wiggle room if we restructured Chubb, Tyreek, and Jalen Ramsey this year. We pushed that $44.8 million, another, over the life of their contracts. Those escalators would offset the releases of, an Agba and an Xavier Howard, because Xavier still has a good portion of
And
guaranteed
Amon-Ra
money.
needs his contract. Good point. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, so like next year we have $10 to $15 million with 28 people on the roster, and that does not account for any Tua Tagovailoa contract, and that has no Javon Holland. And I know that over the cap says we have 58, but if we restructure those deals and push that money, that's going to eat into that. Plus, you got to think of the draft class that we're going to sign this year will also be on the books for next year. And that's not counting two very big numbers with tags on the fifth-year option. Both Phillips and Waddle have identical $19.7 million tag numbers. That's $40 million in cap space. Signing them will let it have team friendly.
Move the money, baby.
You can't structure a fifth-year option. You can structure the contract. So it's one of those things for me. There's not one reason why you wouldn't get this deal with Waddle done. Plus, if you get it done now, it actually even saves you some cap space this year more than likely. So, I mean, it's all about having that forward thinking. We're going to have so much time. It's hard to really project what the cap space looks like before they start making restructures, releases, and new deals. But I know it's not going to be pretty.
But but Waddle doesn't impact this year negatively. That, like we said, that would be a future move. Just like if they locked up Jalen Phillips, that would be a future move. That's not going to impact us this year.
Right, but for me, I'm moving off Bradley Chubb after this year, and Teron Armstead, and whoever else who I think is an old agent player that's not going to have their best years ahead of us to keep Phillips, Holland, and Waddle. That trio, to me,
that's your core
with Tua at the quarterback position, and then you got Ramsey and Tyreek as the MVP type players on your team. Those are the 5 to 6 guys that I'm building as the nucleus of this football team for the next 3 to 5 years. Period.
Yeah.
And you're going to lose good players, and that's going to happen. And then when it's time for the next young batch of players, like an 8-chain potentially to get paid or something, then it's, hey, see you, Jalen Ramsey, see you, Tyreek Hill. Thanks for everything. You're probably going to be in the Ring of Honor, and I hope you get a Super Bowl ring with us. Like that, that's where you go, and that's the trajectory of team building. But man, I think
it's just a disrespect, bro. Like, over the last 2 years, like you said, with Tyreek Hill gaining over 3,500 yards, right? Tyreek Hill over the last 2 years has 3,509 yards. Number 2 on the list is CeeDee Lamb. He has 3,108. So there's a 400-yard difference, okay? But even with Tyreek Hill eating the way he's eating, guess what? Jaylen Waddle, what is he? 10th in yards over the last 2 years, all right? Number 2 in yards per reception, only behind George Pickens. He's number 10 in what is he, I think he's tied for like number 10, he's like tied for number 10 in if you go by ties and stuff. He's top 10 in receiving touchdowns over the last 3 years, 2 years. So I just don't get, like, imagine if he didn't have to compete for targets.
Well, and here's the reality is, I'd bet if I had to pick one player on this football team, that he's the guy who makes the biggest leap from this year to next year. I think
I agree.
I think it's going to be Jaylen Waddle. I think you're going to get a motivated, pissed off in a contract year Jaylen Waddle. Hopefully it's not a contract year. Hopefully it gets done. But I think you're going to see the best version of Jaylen Waddle. And, look, he's not a guy who's going to go run you over, break 16 tackles, and make you think he's the most physical player in the world. But, the Deebo Samuels don't grow in trees, just like he is the guy that when everyone's telling me DJ Reed's a cornerback who's going to make $20 million a year, he toasted him like he was a JV football player. And there's a rare special talent there. I actually think that he has the ability to separate on par with Tyreek Hill. I don't think he's as explosive because
He's not as strong yet.
Yeah, right? He's not strong, but he does have that gear That is so unique. What we didn't see this year that we saw the year before, and the year before that 1,300-yard season, for me, Waddle was just brilliant.
Yeah.
Those slants, when he can make the safety and linebacker underestimate his speed and he can split them, like there's 3 players in football that probably can make that play. And Jaylen Waddle's one of them.
And
Against
Tyreek's the
Green Bay,
other. We got 2 of them.
right. And what we did against Green Bay, when he caught that one pass and he went like 75 yards for the touchdown, what Waddle can do after the catch, there's not many people in football that can do it. Look, he's my second favorite player in
Well, and
football.
look at how he bailed Tyreek Hill out after the drop against the Cowboys on the very next play.
Right.
If it wasn't for Jaylen Waddle, we would probably not even have scored on that drive, right?
Right.
So, I mean,
sorry to take us off that tangent, but it was aggressive.
Yeah, but the disrespect for this kid, bro. Like,
it was bad.
He's been battling through injuries last year, and he's still top 10 in receiving yards and number 2 in yards per reception over the last 2 years. It's pathetic, bro.
Right.
Again, this is what happens when we deal with people in this fan base who just don't understand football and don't know football. I mean, people this is what, like, listen, here's where I run into a problem with these type of people. People who have no player evaluation skills, have no draft track record, they just have no pro evaluation skills either. To me, sure, everyone can have their opinion, but their opinions shouldn't matter when it comes to player evaluations at the pro level. If you've never been correct hitting on kids at a consistent level coming out of college, I don't want to hear your evaluations of now if you can't evaluate at the collegiate level, you cannot evaluate at the pro level. I'm sorry. You just can't. And
right.
We could we could put plays on the field. We could ask them. Have I ever seen a draft guide from these people? Have I ever seen in-depth scouting reports from these people like I've done on my channel since 2020, or you've written draft guides? Have we ever seen this from these people? No. They go to these other sites, read what other people say about them, then use those opinions to formulate their own, and then they'll go argue with someone like you who actually knows how to evaluate a player and try to tell you you're wrong when their whole life is based on using other people's evaluations. It's a big oxymoron, and I don't think their opinion should be taken to heart, let alone seriously. I think those people have no foundational ground and basis to stand on. To me, they're nothing more than hollow words and people who are just couch potatoes trying to give their opinion.
Yeah, don't read the comments of the chat because Ricky just posted something that will get you even more fired up. But no, it's that time of year, man, where the Dolphins didn't accomplish what they wanted to. And because of that, we're pointing the finger at everyone. Like, I was disappointed. And you know that, like, the last 3 games of the season made me go from having probably the most fun I've had as a Dolphin fan to being as pissed off as I've ever been. But, I had a friend of mine who's a Ravens fan say, well, Driscoll, just calm down and think about this, dude. You guys had the injuries you had, and heading into Baltimore with 2 games left in the season, you were fighting for the number 1 seed. And then you had to go and play in temperatures that have only happened once ever in the history of football against the best player on the planet.
Who beat everyone in the AFC and the best NFC team.
You weren't going to win. So I appreciate that perspective because it can bring some balance to your thinking. You know what I mean? Because I'm still frustrated because, I heard you on your show the other night talking about you don't really care about the jerseys. You just want to win. Yeah, that's what I want. I don't care if they wore pink polka dotted jerseys and they went out there and won a Super Bowl, man. Like, all I want is one Super Bowl before I put it in the ground. That's it. That's all I give. That will make my life great with a nice little bow, and they can put me in the ground and I'll be happy as hell for eternity. Like, that's all I want is one. And I'd like the Orioles to win the World Series this year too. But like for me, like, as much as I love the Orioles and the Capitals, I've been on this Dolphin journey for 36 years, man, and I saw the greatest athlete that I ever cheered for in my life, Dan Marino, fall short. All I want is just one, man. That's it. Like, I think it's fair to ask, and I think a lot of passion comes out when we want that. But it is hard to keep your emotions in check when you have put a lot of effort into watching Jaylen Waddle. In 3 years, Jaylen Waddle's been as good of a first-round pick as we've had here in an eternity. And
bro, I used to go to listen. I can go over we know when it comes to this community, I'm sorry, I'll say it. When it comes to the Dolphins in the draft, no one has my track record. That's a literal fact. That's why didn't matter who was live last year. Everyone was watching Finside the NFL during the draft. That's why. All right. So I'm going to start off with that. All right. It don't matter whether I was arguing about Waddle with people in this fan base who didn't know what they were talking about because I ended up being right, or even guys we haven't drafted. You remember the wars I used to go to with people saying Penei Sewell couldn't play right tackle?
That's
Do you
crazy.
remember that? Do you remember me digging up high school footage of him playing right tackle and showing it to people and saying, tell me he can't play right tackle
awesome.
now?
He's the best right tackle in football.
I said this before. Why does Travis Wingfield not talk to me? Why is he not a fan of Reason? Because his little buddy, I got called into a little argument because this guy was out here saying, oh, he can't play right tackle. Penei Sewell can't do that. We should have Robert Hunt at right tackle instead of Penei Sewell. And I came in there. I didn't call names. I didn't degrade him. I just destroyed him with facts. I put facts over feeling and I killed him. And he went crying back to Travis Wingfield. And now Travis, after years of talking to me, Travis took issue with me because his friend ended up being wrong. And I put him on blast and just because I was right. So that's how fickle these people are in this fan base. All right. Like even with people who are, let's say it, authorities on this type of stuff. Even when they're, they think they know what they know because they heard Mel Kiper or their favorite podcaster say something about someone you're talking about when you've watched the film, when you've charted the plays, when you've written a scouting report on this guy. Like it's damn near mental. Like it's damn near mental. Again, I go back to you got a bunch of grocery baggers from a supermarket trying to talk to brain surgeons about surgery.
And for me, I actually really enjoy about the draft, the different perspectives, because I think you can learn a lot by it. But I do think there's now this whole thing where everything has a side. Like you're either on this guy's, like you can't be like, you know what? I like that player. I don't love him. You got to either be like, he's the next Mike Webster at center, or he's a complete bust. I feel like there's a lot of that in today's coverage of sports. You have to like pick a side, like the whole Tua thing. Like you either are a Tua non or you're anti-Tua. I can't be like, you know what? I think he's a top 10 quarterback. I'm happy with where he is. I want to see him do better. I think he has to take it to the next level to earn the contract. Like, it's not okay to be in the middle on spots. And I think that's what's tough. But no, man, it's for me personally, number 17, I want it to be Jaylen Waddle, and I want him to be out there with Tyreek Hill this year because that gives us the best chance to win. Sure, is it a little finesse? Sure. We're not built to run the ball 40 times and be a power running team and a power running scheme. But you know what? I bet you there's a lot of teams in football that would like to have the weapons that we have and the speed we have too. We just need to find a way to work it and balance it.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's going to come down to that's Chris Grier's job, man. So, like the problem with Chris Grier is he can hit on the starters. It's when the depth is what he can't hit on, right? Like you can look at over the last 4 drafts, he can hit on starters, but you just cannot. The depth is where he's finding issues, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So all right, let's get into this. Let's start off on Anthony Weaver in his introductory press conference today, because he did say a lot of things. And there's a couple clips I do want to play because he did talk about his scheme. We talked about blitzing. We talked about all that kind of stuff. So one of the things we've discussed on this channel is what his scheme's going to be. And I've been telling people it's going to be a hybrid scheme.
It's the
not
best
going
game
to
in football to me. What the Ravens run.
It's not going to be what he ran in Houston. That's what I was telling people. He was running a version of Romeo Crennel's defense with Romeo Crennel's personnel and mainly almost all of Romeo Crennel's staff. Now you're going to see him after being in Baltimore, because he comes from the Mike Pettin tree. So now you're going to see him, and so did Mike McDonald, right? And under Wink Martindale. And I think I brought this up, he saw what worked with Wink and what didn't. He saw what worked with Mike McDonald and he saw what didn't. He's going to hybrid it. And here we go. I want to play this and then let's talk about what he said here, because this was a great question by Daniel Oifusi and one of the biggest questions that's been on everyone's mind.
Daniel Oifusi, Miami Herald. Nice to meet you. I know a lot of people are wondering, you spent the past couple of years in Baltimore, you have experience in DC and Houston. In terms of the scheme that you're planning to bring to Miami, will you foresee that? Do you think you're bound to one particular scheme, or how do you plan to approach that?
Yeah, I think the scheme that we use in Baltimore is actually extremely multiple and flexible. and the foundation of what we're going to do here will be from that. But the beauty in that is a lot of things that they've already done here that they've had success in, we are very similar there. So there should be a lot of crossover teaching. But I think in this league, it's hard to just pigeonhole yourself as one particular thing, because you're going to face different situations throughout the entire year, whether it's weather, injuries, there's a multitude of factors, and your scheme better be flexible enough to, one, adapt to the players and adapt to whatever situation you may be in. So.
All right. So, because another thing he talked about also was he called Jaylen Ramsey the ultimate chess piece. And this is what we talked about being multiple. This is what we were hoping would happen last year because of what Brandon Staley did in an iteration of that offense that we didn't see from Fangio, not just the traveling, but how he's using the star role. Other guys I talked about could have been using a star role with someone like Javon Holland, because go look at the Oregon tape, right? Another kid I was way out ahead of before anyone was talking about. And for the Dolphins, as a fit for the Dolphins, I say. So, he played corner, slot corner, box, line of scrimmage, single high, two high in Oregon. He can play that star role. I think Cam Smith, once he gets acclimated to the NFL, he's got the athleticism where he could be multiple too for you in what you ask of him, but he needs the reps, Vic. Anyways, what are your thoughts on what he said there? Because when he also talked about Jaylen Ramsey, he said, and I quote, to have him sit outside and be a field corner or something like that, I think is a detriment. And we got to find ways to move them around where he can be most impactful. So I don't know if people want to assume that's a shot at Vic Fangio and the usage, knock yourself out. I don't think it was. I think it was just he saw how he was used and knew he wasn't used properly. What are your thoughts on him saying we're going to have a hybrid offense, basically confirming what a lot of us were saying, and also even specifically honing in on how he's going to use Jaylen Ramsey?
Yeah, what we saw today from Anthony Weaver is why 72 hours before he was officially the Dolphins defensive coordinator on your year-end panel with Doug Lee and Richmond and crew, I said he was my number one choice. I was his mentor is my favorite defensive coordinator of all time, Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan's always been my favorite defensive coordinator. I got to see it here firsthand. I know that he had a defense riddled with Hall of Fame caliber players, but even when they went down, his defense, it's the flexibility and the aggressiveness on the defense side of the ball. I think our defense did a great job this year, but in key scenarios we were very passive a lot of the times, and we also lacked adaptability. And when you have Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen in your conference, you better be able to make second half adjustments. Being stubborn and sticking to your ways isn't going to beat them. They're going to beat you every single time. And that's who we lose to. We lose to all those elite quarterbacks time and time again. We could beat up all the mid and below teams. Those elite quarterbacks give us problems because what you have to do to beat those quarterbacks, the reason the Ravens could beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady back in the day when they had quarterbacks like Kyle Bowler and Joe Flacco, they punched those quarterbacks in the mouth. They put pressure and hit them. They attacked them in various ways. They didn't win just off four up front creating pressure like we saw in Vic Fangio's scheme. They sent linebackers. They sent corners. They sent safeties. It comes at a various different ways. That flexibility and aggressiveness is unbelievable. I like little things that he's going to be on the sidelines and be on the trenches with the players. I like that. I like a quarterback, a coach that wants to get a feel for the game. I think Anthony Weaver was as impressive as I thought. And to your point on letting Jaylen Ramsey travel with players and being a versatile chess piece, that's what we all thought he was going to be this year. And one of the things I said in that space I was in today is Jaylen Ramsey is one of the most versatile players in football. And when you let him be that player, he's one of the best players in football. When you line him up and put him just on the boundary, he's a great cornerback. But you're not maximizing your return on investment for a player of that caliber, because he can do so many other things so well. And for me, you're going to see Jaylen Ramsey eliminate top receivers. We're not going to have Stephon Diggs abusing players like Cater Kohu time and time again, right? Like, you're not going to see that. You're going to see a strategic approach of what it takes to win. And I will say this, at every hire we've ever made, I come away and I'm impressed with the press conference. 99% of the time, I'm going to come out here and say positive things. I think I even did about Joe Philbin, if I'm being honest. It's the biggest moment of those guys' life when they're a first-time coach, right? A head coach or defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator. what I saw with Anthony Weaver today was so genuine and so real. I don't think that guy had to go there and make all these notes. I think he walked up on the podium with a microphone in his mouth and just put out who he was on the table. And man, I'm going to say something pretty bold. I think there's a chance that the defense is going to be better with less talent in Anthony Weaver than it was with Vic Fangio and more talent. That's how high I think of this move. I think this is the best move the Dolphins have made in a while, and I was a big Vic Fangio fan, and I don't want to crap on the move because I still think Vic Fangio is a great defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and look what he got out of us, right?
But I hate the fact that it's my way or the highway because the NFL is different, man, and you and I will agree on it. It is a different thing. The players come into the league with millions of dollars. They get these huge contracts. You know, you can't be stubborn. You got to be flexible, and that's where I think Anthony Weaver comes in here. Man, I am so excited for this move, and
what do you think about him saying that he's not even gonna? He was talking about how he's gonna be on the sidelines. He's not gonna be calling it defensive shots from the booth. He said, and I
love
quote,
it.
"I need to feel right what's going on in the game for you, how the players are reacting to the situation, and hopefully be a positive influence in whatever reaction that is. I don't think you can have the same effect from up in the booth."
Yeah, I love it. I think I kind of agree with it. Like, honestly, I'd rather have my offensive coordinator up in a booth and my defensive coordinator down on the field because that's like defense comes with an energy. Defense comes with mojo, right? It's like you have a feel for the game. You make a big play, you're chest bumping, you're flowing. Like, I just think we all have some of the similar thoughts about the Dolphins' demeanor, right, when they're playing a football game. I think you're going to see a more ferocious Dolphins defense. I think you're going to see 4th and 5th round picks get drafted in this defense over the next few years and be contributed pass rushers that are productive players. I think you're going to start to see a lot more. It's not going to be, hey, we draft Cam Smith, he's not going to play for a year. It's going to be baptism by fire, man. Cam, go earn your stripes. You know, if not, we're going to go draft another guy the year after to replace you. Like, I think it's going to create good competition. But yeah, I think everything that Anthony Weaver said today, I mean, dude, how do you not walk away from that? I see a future head coach in Anthony Weaver. I hope it's not next year. I hope we get a couple years of him here in Miami. But I see a future head coach in Anthony Weaver.
And just so everyone knows, like, I see Frank Smith probably being up in the booth for McDaniel. And I think you're going to have a defensive assistant, obviously, up there.
Yeah.
To, so people don't worry that there ain't going to be anyone up there. Just don't worry. There's going to be someone up there.
No.
But it goes back to a little bit of the energy. Something interesting, too, that I took away. And it wasn't him gushing over seeing Jaylen Phillips without a shirt on. Something else he noted, I noticed. Did you notice when he was talking about players, the only pending free agent he discussed was Christian Wilkins?
Yeah, I did. And you and I have been steadfast on this. Look, I understand from a salary cap perspective, when you crunch numbers, it looks bleak for Christian Wilkins' return. I don't think the Dolphins are going to let him leave without a fight, and it could be the franchise tag. I think they think he's too damn good of a player. I doubt it's just going to be like wham, bam, see ya. Like, we can all want Robert Hunt as priority one. I'm not sure the Dolphins do. I think Christian Wilkins is still one of their main priorities. And I do think that another attractive thing with Anthony Weaver that you got to keep an eye on is just how many key free agents from Baltimore's defense are out there.
Stone, a ton of sense, man.
Geno Stone makes a lot of sense.
But didn't he coach Deshaun Elliott when Deshaun Elliott was there?
Yeah, he knows Deshaun well. It's another guy that I think could come back because of that. But I would even say, like, Geno Stone makes a lot of sense. A guy that we flirted with so many times, Jadeveon Clowney, he's never come here.
Yeah.
With our injuries at edge and the relationship he has with Anthony Weaver.
How much did he just make in Baltimore?
2.5, but I think he's going to make 8 this year. Would you pay 1 year for? I would take him over Van Ginkel. He had 10 sacks this year. Pat Queen, I don't think we're going to get him. I think he's going to be too expensive. But even like the role players in Baltimore's defense, like think about Zach Steeler. That was a guy they was like, we drafted him, but he's not good enough to make our team. Like I've always said that I want the Dolphins to be in the trash cans, digging through Baltimore scraps, finding I'm bringing this roster. And I like it from the coaching staff perspective, and I like it from the defense side. Geno Smith had, I think, 7 or 8 interceptions this year. Great ball skills.
Geno Stone.
Geno Smith, I'm thinking he just
Geno Smith's contract on your mind. I get it.
He just got paid, but like I'm so excited to see the
$12 million. Didn't he get paid like $12 million? Something like that?
17.
Woo! People are gonna come out and say Tua needs to take $17 million.
You know it's coming. I saw a list today actually that had Geno Smith as 12 and Tua as 19. So it's crazy.
Shout out to Hooked Up Joe for becoming a channel member. Another thing I wanted to talk about, okay, because a thing that we were also we thought we're going to be aggressive and multiple. That was what we were saying. That's what I was saying when I was previewing the defense. It's what we've said up here. We expect us to be aggressive and multiple, right? So he was asked about blitzing, and I want to play this clip because this is exactly what he said about blitzing. By the way, can I also add this? Did you know how McDaniel always say adversity is an opportunity? Did you hear what he said today?
No, did he say the same thing?
Problems are gifts. I'm like, oh fuck, here we go.
There's a series of Hallmark cards coming out.
Bro, I'll give you the exact quote because then he used the word. What did he say? He said, what did he say? He said, problems are gifts with all the adversity that we dealt with throughout the, you know what I'm saying? Like, he used adversity was the next word out of his mouth. I was like, this is classic. All right. Anyways, this is what he said about blitzing.
Calculated, not reckless. I've been around both guys, right? I've been around
Wink.
guys that
You know he's talking about wink.
And let's see what happens. Let's throw flies in the windshield and see what sticks. All right. And then I've been guys that have been more calculated than that. And I believe you have to be calculated, not reckless.
I agree.
That's Mike McDonald.
Yeah.
You're obviously leaving your under coverage and secondary vulnerable. So whenever we do blitz, it'll be with intent.
I love that.
I love that too, man, because, one of the things he talked about when he was talking about being multiple, he's talking about being very matchup orientation based, right? And it goes back to what Mike McDonald was doing, right? When you look at how Mike McDonald was attacking, Mike McDonald was attacking defenses, and I brought this up so many times, but I'll bring it up again so people can understand it a little bit more. But when you look at, like, from coverages, for example, mainly ran cover 6 in week 1 against the Texans last year. Then they mainly ran cover 1 the next 2 weeks against the Bengals and the Colts, right? But then you look at them from a blitzing rate and how they were attacking teams. I mean, okay, look at the Bengals and the Colts. They both played a majority of cover 1 coverage against them, right? But the thing is, against Joe Burrow in that offense, they only blitzed 11.6% of the time. The next week against Gardner Minshew, they blitzed at a 51% rate. Then the next week when they went up, and then after the Colts, they faced the Browns. They went to mainly cover 3 and cover 4 against the Browns. So they switched up the cover. But then what did they do? They dropped back down to a 14% blitz rate. So they're very matchup orientation from not only a coverage standpoint, but from an aggressive standpoint. And that's what you need to be in the NFL, because not every team is built the same way. Not every quarterback is built the same. I mean, they're not going to play Lamar the same way they play Tua Tagovailoa, just like you're not going to play Tua Tagovailoa the same way you play Lamar.
Right. And I think what we see in that press conference with the clip you just played, right? We brought on Vic Fangio, and he's a great defensive mind, but I don't think that he brought a lot to the Dolphins locker room. He's kind of like that grandfather that you made tea for and the tea wasn't warm enough, right? And obviously him and Mike McDaniel didn't really jive well, right?
Yeah.
I see from Anthony Weaver a guy that's going to bring a no bullshit approach to this team, but be able to look his players in the eye at a ground level and be in the trenches with them, which I think is very, very key here.
Can I say something, bro? If Mike McDaniel don't get it right this season, you better be looking over your shoulder. And that's just, remember, weren't we already discussing this before we even saw him in his introductory press conference? Didn't I? Was it you? Was it you that I asked? Hey, was it? I could have swore it was you.
It was me.
Where I said, might they potentially have the next guy in the building if Mike McDaniel don't work out?
Yeah, I do think that he's a guy that's going to be very hot on the coaching candidates. I mean, look, that Baltimore team this year, we talk about us not achieving our goals this year. That Baltimore team, I think, missed a layup to win a Super Bowl. Like, I think they missed a layup to win a Super Bowl. And I know beating Pat Mahomes isn't a layup. The Ravens were better than the Chiefs this year, man. The Ravens were
from 1 to 53.
Oh, my God. That defense, the amount of players and
talent.
The
problem was number 15. That's what the problem was.
And that's going to be the problem for the next decade. But with that said, like, that's where, everyone's worried about the Dolphins losing. And I think it's fair to worry about it. There's no team in football that's lost more than the Baltimore Ravens. They've lost all their defensive minds in the building. They're going to lose. I think they might franchise tag Justin Matabuki, but there's going to be collateral damage like losing Clowney, Van Noy, Geno Stone, Patrick Queen. Like you're going to lose a lot. Both of their starting guards, John Simpson and Kevin Zeitler, are both unrestricted free agents. Like J.K. Dobbins is unrestricted, Odell Beckham's and I don't think Odell is graded by any means.
What's Zeitler asking for?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what. If we strike out on Robert Hunt, I'm interested in Kevin Zeitler. He was awesome in Baltimore.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm asking. What he's asking for here?
I would say probably half of what Hunt's going to get. Yeah. Hey, man, look. Why reinvent the wheel? Here's a strategy no one's talked about, and I'm thinking out loud.
He's right.
Give me Jackson Powers Johnson, and then go sign John Simpson and Kevin Zeitler. Give Baltimore's guards, bring them in here. Nobody ran the ball better than Baltimore, right? Bring those guards in here with Jackson Powers Johnson, with Austin Jackson, Teron Armstead on the outside. Your offensive line's fixed. John Simpson was really, really good at left guard for Baltimore.
Bro, you ain't hearing an argument from me.
Right.
You just solved all the problems, and it probably cost 2/3 of what it's going to cost to bring Wilkinson.
Right. And I love Robert Hunt. I want him back, but I'm just saying, if we strike out there, like, you got to be flexible and nimble to find a way to keep that. Because I do think that I disagree with the consensus that I heard in that space today, where there's nothing more of a priority to me than the offensive line.
I agree.
Nothing.
110%.
Nothing is. Because with Tua,
that's the way we're going to get through these December, January months, bro.
Right. Yeah. Tua did not have a great year when facing pressure in his face. No, that was something.
And then
that
the one game we have our whole offensive line, we put up 70 burger on the Denver Broncos, who beat that same Chiefs team a couple weeks later in Kansas City.
Yep.
I'm just saying. That's why when I was on that All Dolphins podcast, I brought up to Alan Pupar, and I said, Alan, you're telling me the one time you saw this whole offensive line together and they put up 70 points, that didn't give you cause for optimism or hope? Oh, no. I'm like, what are you watching? Like, what are you talking about in that? Like, I don't get how someone can't look at that game. Take the 70 points off the board. Don't even worry about the final score. Look at how dominant we were in pass pro and running the football. Look how dominant we were in the trenches. And it goes back. You've been around, Neal. Who was the first one pointing out only a week or two after he went down? Yo, this run game don't look the same without Isaiah Wynn. Go and behold, the season plays out. How many 100-yard games did Raheem Mostert have after Isaiah Wynn went down?
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that interior, you know what people need to realize, Neal? For a guy like Tua and how he maneuvers in the pocket and how he plays his game, that interior is much more vital to him than the tackle. He can escape those edges. Well, it's the interior that messes him up.
Well, here's the thing, right? You only have so much cap space to fill it. The Dolphins have a lot of holes. I'm just going to say what it is. You know what you do? You build the best offense you can, and you have a new coach that's going to be able to create. Because, look, you're already going to be down Phillips and Chubb for a portion of the season. You know, I think that you do whatever you can do to make that offense look like that offense you saw in Denver in the first half of the season, and that's going to give the Dolphins the best half. Because I think – you remember how Jalen Ramsey got hurt? And in the second half of the season, the defense had changed everything. I think you're going to see that with Jalen Phillips this year. I think Jalen Phillips is this year's version of Jalen Ramsey, where he probably comes back at the halfway point, maybe a little bit before, but he comes back and makes such a damn difference that it's like, oh, man, this is the Jalen Phillips I know and love. Because I said this, I tweeted this, I think the player there's two players that I think are just going to hit the next level under Anthony Weaver. I think you're going to see Javon Holland assert himself like Kyle Van Noy. I mean, not Kyle Van Noy.
Kyle Hamilton. Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton. And I think Jalen Phillips is going to be a freaking stud. I think he's a guy who's going to flirt with 15 sacks here with the Weaver.
Bro, do you remember the doubt? Do you remember Kyle Hamilton was easily a top 10 player in the draft?
My number 3 overall player.
But do you remember because of the combine, all the doubt? You remember all the doubt on Kyle Hamilton because of the combine? Oh, he's not a first-round talent anymore. Same thing with, you remember I was a huge fan of this guy, and I dropped him a little bit because of the combine. look at the year Kyron Williams just had, bro.
Yeah,
I
he's a
mean,
beast.
right? Like, and I had him as a top 3 guy originally, and then I dropped him to like 6 because he had historically one of the worst combines ever for a running back. And then he looked like next to Puka Nacua, he was the biggest help for Stafford and the Rams last year, I thought, was Kyron Williams.
Well, and sometimes, man, the underwear Olympics don't matter.
Yeah.
Watching tape doesn't matter. Just watching a football game live and watching the players matter. And like, I also think this. Puka Nacua is proof to me that the Dolphins, with this passing attack, should always try to take scratch offs in the 6th, 7th round. I did a mock today, and I have them drafting Aeneas Smith from Texas A&M in round 6. Like, find those
Bro, it
guys.
goes back to when we took – who was the guy – who did – your boys in Baltimore drafted him? The guy I wanted, was it the – he was the slot receiver. The Ravens drafted him, but we took Blake Ferguson, and he was still on the board.
Oh, James Prochet.
Yeah. What happened to Prochet anyways? Where is
he got cut.
now?
He fumbled. Yeah, I think he might be in Tampa. He fumbled a couple punts in Baltimore, and they cut him.
But, I mean, I would have taken a shot on James. Do you think Blake Ferguson was really going to get drafted or go to as a UDFA? Stop. We need a long snapper over a potential slot guy?
Right.
Wait, hold on. No. And what round did Devin Duvernay go in?
Round 3. Texas.
And I remember him sitting around. I was a huge Devin Duvernay guy. And I remember him sitting around. I was like, oh, man, like that. I agree with you, bro. Once you get outside day 2, you should be taking shots on receiver. I do 110% agree.
And one more sleeper that I like. I don't know if you watch this guy, Javon Baker.
They tried.
Javon Baker out of Central Florida is a guy that I like in the 5th, 6th round. That I think would be
I haven't
really
watched
good
him
fit.
yet.
I like him. I like him.
I haven't watched him yet.
I like him. Yeah. I see the popular name in the chat, and I saw this just because he had a great Super Juwan Jennings. You know.
Well, no. In fairness to my chat, before the Super Bowl, Neal, they were saying we should sign him as our wide receiver 3. Then the Super Bowl happened. The day after the Super Bowl, I gave the chat their props. I said the problem is now he's an RFA and he's about to get paid, so it's not happening.
Well, here, that my scenario that I talked about was trying to sign Braxton Berrios back on the cheap.
Yeah.
I've changed that. Instead of signing him back on the cheap, bring Trent Sherfield back on the cheap. Bring him. Let him be, for a $2 million player, get him on the outside block. Try to find a guy in the draft, too, because there's big physical guys. But, this team, whoever you get, if they are your number 3 receiver and the other guys are Tyreek and Waddle and they don't eat, they're not your guy. Chase Claypool, Cedric Wilson, Robbie Chosen, those guys, River Craycraft, even though I like River and I think he has a role as a number 5, 6 receiver on the team, if you can't eat with Hill and Waddle drawing coverage, you ain't going to eat anywhere. That's how I look at it. If I was a team and I needed a receiver, I wouldn't even get Chase Claypool to play for the minimum after what I saw from him last year. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest.
Another good thing too, it was pointed out today that Ryan Slowick he's gonna be in the defensive secondary, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that position because they obviously moved him around from outside linebackers when he was absolutely phenomenal last year with what he got out of that group. But it feels like they're moving him around as secondary to get him acclimated to coaching all the different units. And you know why teams usually do that. When they get you coaching all the different units, eventually that comes with defensive assistant, then defensive coordinator, right? Yeah, they want to keep him around.
They like him.
Right? They want to keep him around. So over 350 of you, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. Let's keep it rolling here. And let's talk about, did the Miami Dolphins lose the Tyreek Hill trade? Because that was a topic of discussion, Neal, and I wanted to wait for you for after, because we've talked about potentially trading him a couple weeks ago and stuff like that. I wanted to talk to this about you. So the Chiefs, since trading him, are 7-0 in the playoffs. They've won 2 Super Bowls. Now, they got 5 picks in return for Hill. Those picks they've turned into Keandre Coburn, Rashee Rice, Darian Kennard, Sky Moore, and Trent McDuffie, and they still have a 2024 5th-round pick. Now, the Trent McDuffie, that's the one everyone's going to lock into.
Great player.
People who didn't even, and me and you were high on him coming out, but people who didn't even evaluate this kid or watch this kid are now saying, oh, we screwed up on the Tyreek Hill trade because they got Trent McDuffie out of it when these people weren't even mentioning his name during draft time. So let's relax on that. Number 2, correct me if I'm wrong, Neal, didn't they actually package that pick we gave them to move up and get Trent McDuffie? That wasn't the actual pick That
No,
wasn't the
'cause
actual pick we gave them, right?
the pick we gave them was used for Cole Strange. The Patriots used it.
Yeah.
So I think what
Yeah.
happened is that they moved up and the Patriots moved down to get that. Yep.
So that wasn't the exact where
Yep.
the point is the exact spot we were picking wasn't where Trent McDuffie was selected. That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, and no, the Dolphins didn't lose trade, and here's why. The variable in this is Patrick Mahomes. Like for me, and people think differently. My all-time quarterback are Brady 1, Mahomes 2.
Yeah,
Already.
Reverse it for me.
See, Brady beat him in a Super Bowl, so like I got to give.
Yeah,
to
but
Brady.
okay, let me ask you this. Okay, and that's a point people are gonna say. Do you think Brady could beat this Patrick Mahomes we're seeing right now? Because we saw Patrick Mahomes when, remember, he's even said the first couple years he was still learning how to read defenses at the NFL level. And also, did Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, or did Kansas City's offensive line let him down and that defense
I'll say this.
feast?
Mahomes is more physically gifted than Tom Brady. I don't know if he's. I don't like it's and Tom
Yeah,
Brady.
but
Tom
my whole-
Brady ruined
My
my
whole
life.
thing is Tom Brady left New England when his weapons got this bad. He packed his bags and said, I'm going
Yeah,
to Tampa.
I would say this. The first half of the Tom Brady's career when he was winning those Super Bowls with Troy Brown, Deion Branch, that was impressive because
Yeah, it was.
those guys were nowhere. And then they got Randy Moss. They fell
Defense
short.
in a run game. They were even getting Corey Dillon in those early years for him.
Yeah, I see. I just think when you have 7 rings.
Because remember, he hadn't thrown 30 touchdowns and at least 30 touchdowns or more until he got Moss, and that wasn't in the first couple of years.
Yeah, for me, Tom Brady ruined my life for 20 years. Mahomes only ruined it for 6. Ask me
It's
in
not
14
done,
years,
though.
it's going to be Mahomes probably. But like, yeah, I mean, look, but no matter how you rank, they're 1 and 2. The variable that makes this trade different is Patrick Mahomes. If Tyreek Hill came from the Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith had Rashee Rice and Trent McDuffie, they're not winning 2 Super Bowls. Like, right?
Agreed.
Like, so that's the variable. Tyreek Hill's the best player on this football team. He's had his 2 best seasons of his career here.
Yeah.
Tyreek
Hill he's the one that won the trade, basically. If you want to say.
Yeah, I think. Look, he's making a shit ton of money. He got paid. He's home. Look, you need to get wins for this trade to be validated for the Dolphins. But like, I'll say this, sure, we all won a Super Bowl. But going to the playoffs for back-to-back years sure doesn't suck. There was a long time where we didn't sniff the freaking playoffs, right? So we just got to beat each narrative one by one. But like, look, I threw trading out Tyreek Hill kind of and C-Devil, I don't know if I would take Mahomes over Brady. I don't know that.
Stop.
I don't know if I would.
Package-wise, come on.
I don't know.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to go out and say this. This is what I see at least. He's gained the poise, the pocket presence, and the ability to elevate those around him like Brady did at a much quicker pace. Then when you had Brady couldn't extend plays with him like him, Brady didn't have his arm. When you look at Pack, it's not even close. Like he's
but
like
dude,
he's getting
the longevity factor matters.
And I agree, but okay, 2 things I got to that. First of all, let me finish the last point. What was most impressive, this is why I put Mahomes as the GOAT now. You know why? This playoff run was not about lighting teams up. It was about being the most efficient quarterback in the end. We've now seen Mahomes win a Super Bowl off pure talent from him, but now we've seen him win a Super Bowl off being a purely efficient high-level quarterback, and those are 2 different styles to play. We've seen them, okay? So that's 1. Number 2, people seem to forget, and I don't think Mahomes is going to be, now I might be wrong, Brady went 9 years without winning a Super Bowl. I don't think Mahomes is going to go 9 years in his career without winning a Super Bowl.
I could agree with that, but we have to see it. Like, that's the thing.
Oh, we have to see it, but I'm telling you, based off of what I'm seeing, the sample size, I think he'll at least win 1 in a 9-year span.
Oh, look, they're going to be the team that I think wins the Super Bowl next year. If you ask me today, right? Like, I don't see anybody beating the Chiefs in the AFC next year. But no, I mean, look, I think a lot of things that happen now, and I'm not saying you, but in general, there's a recency bias. Like, we have to remember the Patriots were a 20-year dynasty.
Yeah,
I mean, what Tom Brady did makes Michael Jordan look like a walk in the park kind of, man. Like, that's insane. And I'm not saying he's a better individual player than Michael Jordan, but like, to have dominance for 20 years, I just think it sucks as a football fan whose team hasn't won a Super Bowl that we have to go through it all over again, man. I like when there's a little bit more parity. I remember sitting down with my family at Christmas when the Raiders were beating the shit out of the Chiefs. And like I said, like, oh man, like the Chiefs are done. You know what I mean? And then they go on this run and win a Super Bowl. So I think what we saw, I think it was the most impressive Super Bowl for Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And I pray with everything that I have that next year
Bro,
it's
look at the
about
confidence.
football and not about freaking some singer in a booth, man. Like I couldn't even freaking watch.
Look at the
Like,
confidence on that Hardman touchdown.
oh,
Like,
he's amazing.
no,
Amazing.
bro. They didn't even stop the clock. They would have ran out of time if he would have dropped that football. It was running down to like 5, 4, 3, snap, throw. I'm like, holy shit.
Didn't you know because of Mahomes' greatness they were going to win? I knew it.
Over. When they got a field goal, it was over.
It was over.
It's done.
I 100% agree.
Like Mahomes is, and even when they got that lead near the end and they had to tie it with a field goal, I remember they got that lead when they got went by 3 with like 4 minutes or 3 or 2 minutes left. I on the stream, I said you gave him way too much time. Like you got the best field goal kicker in the NFL, right? And like here's the thing, bro, and this is what people don't realize, huh? You don't just this is what we're dealing with the dynasty. You don't just got to beat Patty. You don't got to beat just Patty. You got to beat the best coach in football, and you got to beat the best defensive coordinator in football too.
Oh,
that is
amazing.
Tough task, bro. Like,
and the only thing that I could see that could derail them, and I actually thought it was
an injury. It's an injury,
or just if Andy Reid and Kelsey retire, I still think Mahomes is going to be great. Don't get me wrong. I think Andy Reid, man, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is a top 5 coach of all time.
I think he's going to be arguably the greatest coach of all time when it's
Isn't that nuts though? Because he his longevity. You talk about longevity.
Well, I used to watch the Eagles and McNabb back in the day fairly closely. People could consider them my second team, but I loved Andy Reid back then. He was a fantastic coach.
Oh,
if he could have got Terrell and Donovan on the same page, he would have won a couple in Philly.
You know what I said that I told my wife this the other night, and because we were just talking Dolphins and stuff. She's come around. I said this. I said, look, everyone will focus on the gap between Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Tua. The real gap that the Dolphins are battling is the difference between Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, than Mike McDaniel. And I love Mike McDaniel.
But then you get to the quarterback, and then you get to the like that's what people know. It starts at the top. And someone said in the chat, how is he the greatest but not Bill? I'll give you 2 reasons. One, did Bill ever even sniff the success Andy Reid has had in Philadelphia with any other team? Nope.
No.
Okay. That's number 1. It's now been proven that without Brady, what is Bill Belichick? That's number 1. Number 2, did Andy Reid ever have to cheat to win a Super Bowl or win a divisional championship? A conference championship, sorry? Did he ever have to cheat?
No.
No. So I can't get down on that. You go look at what Andy built in Philly, and then look what Andy did with Michael Vick alone. Look at how he turned him into a pocket quarterback who was actually damn good. All right? Andy Reid is a different I'm sorry. I'm taking him over Bill Belichick every day of the week. I'm taking Shula over Andy Reid. But Andy Reid is I got much more respect for Andy Reid than I ever will for Belichick.
And look, Belichick's Patriots the last 2 years have been dog shit. And look, Tom Brady went and won a ring in Tampa Bay. Without him, man. I mean that. Look, Bill Belichick's the top 3 to 5 coach of football still of all time. But when you're the greatest and you had a quarterback like Brady and he leaves and everything falls apart and he goes on and he hoists another one, that to me it does have a little bit.
And you shoot yourself in the foot by having Mac be a rookie of the year in the first year, and then you actually tear him down for the next following after that and make him look like nothing. Like that makes me look even worse.
Look at these games, the Ravens, the Ravens Chiefs here, the Bills Chiefs, the Dolphins Chiefs, the Super Bowl. Like the Chiefs don't always come out hot, right? They kind of started a lot of these games off slow. Andy Reid's poise as a coach and dedication to what's got them there. Like the second half, like Mahomes, like he was kind of like, and struggling a little bit, right? Like they only scored an offensive touchdown after a muffed punt. But then when it mattered, man, Mahomes just locked himself in. He was just on a different planet, man. Like, for him, man, he's in the Super Bowl with all those fans, all that noise, all that hoopla. Yet he's just fucking locked in, man. Like it's him. It doesn't matter if it's me or you out there, man. He's hitting us and we're catching balls. I'm a big believer in Andy Reid, and I think it's impressive as hell. And you know what the thing about Andy Reid is? He's got a lot of likability about him, man. He's a great coach, great dude. He's been through a lot of adversity. He lost a child in Philadelphia. He's had another one in trouble. He's dealt with a lot of demons from his family, man. To keep your head on a swivel, be focused, and continue to achieve what he's achieved at the pinnacle of his craft, man. For me, like it's as impressive as anything that I have seen in football. As impressive as Mahomes is, Andy Reid is equally as impressive to me. Hell of a coach, man. And I think he's a great guy, so I'm happy to see it. I just hope that next year we beat his ass.
Yeah, I mean, again, you got a guy in Andy Reid who's got a proven track. I mean, he's
amazing.
He's amazing.
Great.
Man.
He's a great coach, man.
Bro.
He's a great coach.
You knew.
Even how he handled the Travis Kelce bumping into him like an asshole on the sideline situation, right? Like there's no ego there. He probably had a serious talk with him behind the curtains, right? But he don't put his shit out there in the public. Fuck you, Mr. Reporter. You don't need to hear how I handle my business with my players. That's between us. Like, don't ask me. Oh, he's a passionate guy like me. Shit, man. Andy Reid probably ripped Travis a new one when they were kissing, drinking a beer together in the back right after they won the Super Bowl. But
and look at the years he got out of. Look at
Alex Smith,
buddy. What are you talking about? Alex Smith had never thrown for over 3,150 yards before he came to KC. And then first year in KC, 3,300. Second year in KC, almost hits 3,300 again. 2015 hits almost 3,500. Then he hits 3,500 the next year. Then he hits over 4,000 yards the next year. I mean, look at the resurgence Alex Smith had under him.
Yeah.
Like unbelievable. Harbaugh couldn't even get that out of Alex Smith.
Until just like we said with Brady and Belichick, until he and Mahomes aren't together, you need the ball to bounce your way. You need to get lucky. You have to have talent, but you need to find a way to slay the beast.
Yep. Finally here, let's talk about this before we get out of here. I wanted to ask you, is Chris Grier under the most pressure he's ever faced as Miami Dolphins GM? He's going to have to supplement the roster with a bunch of holes in it. He needs to win a playoff game and challenge for the division. He's basically in a position, when you look at our draft picks too, Neal, there's not very much margin of error because we don't have a ton of draft picks.
Right.
I mean, he has to hit. What do we have? What is it? Was 5 or 6 draft picks, right? We got
2
one in the second.
A 7.
We got 5.
5th,
right?
And a 2 and a 1. Yep.
So then again, we got 1, 2, 5th, 2
5,
6s,
and 1 7.
So that's 6, right?
Yep.
So he's got to hit on like 4 or 5 of those, bro. Like, it's already, when you hit on 40 to 50% of your draft picks, that's already like cinema. But we're asking this guy to have basically an 80%, 75% hit rate in this draft. And the crazy thing is, Neal, it's not like 4 of those 6 are on in the first 2 days.
Right.
Only 2 of those are on the first 2 days. We're asking, okay, you got to hit on your first and second round. But then out of those 4 picks between the 5th, the 2, 6, and the 7th, you got to hit on at least 2 or 3 of those.
There's 2 moves. There's 2 moves they have to make, in my opinion. They have to tag and trade Christian Wilkins. There's also rumors that Brian Burns is going to get the same treatment and maybe T. Higgins. So I think a tag and trade could fetch you a 3rd-round pick for Wilkins. And if you're not going to sign him, it makes a lot of sense. And then I'm moving back for 31. The team that I have circled and starred is the Carolina Panthers at 33 because they're going to want a receiver. And if I'm them, I'm not sitting on my hands waiting for one to fall. There's the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Cowboys in front of them. There's a lot of teams that could take a receiver there. I would move back those 12 spots, and you're going to get pick 33. And then I would get pick 65, which is the first pick in the 3rd round. and then I'd also get the first pick in the 4th round. I would ask for those 3 picks, and I'd be willing to move down 12 spots because I still think, and I texted you this, I think Jackson Powers-Johnson will be there at pick 33 based off of some of the medical things I've heard. But if he's not, I'm happy with Graham Barton as a contingency plan. Or does Fountain potentially fall? Or do you just say, you know what? We have pick 55. At pick 55, I could go get Cedric Van Pran or Zach Frazier. Let me utilize this pick at 32 as the replacement, or 33 for the replacement of Christian Wilkins, which I think a great option is Chris Jenkins from Michigan.
I'm taking Frazier over Barton, eh? If I'm going for center. Listen, he did it early on, but all of a sudden now everyone's just falling in love with moving him back there because they don't see him as a left tackle.
Yeah, I don't love him. He's my 45th overall player, so I think it would honestly on my board be a reach. I'm just saying, like, I love Jackson Powers-Johnson just like everybody else, but I think that, and it depends what we do in free agency and restructures and stuff like that. So it's like really hard to project. But I'm okay. I don't want to focus in on a player. I want to focus in on the vision, the strategy, which is we don't have enough day 1 or day 2 picks. So to make that merit, because you might be able to get better, man. You might have a team that wants to come up for one of the quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
And be able to take a beating. But to answer your question, Chris Grier should probably be under the most pressure he is. But I just don't feel like Stephen Ross is going to move off of him, because I think if you move off of Chris Grier and
I think they got Brandon Shore right in the waiting, bro.
Well, see, that's a move they would make because that would keep Mike McDaniel. See, for me, if we fire,
I think Grier and McDaniel would be gone even if they promote Shore. I think they're attached at the hip. Yeah, I think they go.
See, the guy who I wanted is the guy who the Chargers just got from Baltimore. That's the guy who I've wanted for a while. But I think, look, if this team doesn't win a playoff game this year, I could see it be finally where Stephen Ross is like, all right, I'm selling this team. Right? I think that could happen. But I mean, I think he should be on the hot seat. I think he'll get another chance. It's all about this year. I'm telling you, man, like, and I don't want to make it seem doom and gloom. I think this is the year they got to make the run. It gets bleak.
You got to at least that's the problem. The expectations now, you're going to have most likely a lesser talented roster than we had last year, but the expectations are now even higher, especially because you couldn't win a single playoff game. And finally here, Jimmy Johnson, this is what he had to say about Tua and his extension.
Quarterbacks are hard to find, and winning quarterbacks are extremely hard to find. I think you give Tua a contract and you say he's my franchise quarterback, and you build around him. I don't think there's any question about that, Joe. The Dolphins, before they had their injuries, were playing pretty good. And, a couple of the good teams beat them. I understand that. But they're a good football team, and they're getting better.
I agree. Yeah. That's
now,
fair.
he didn't say reset the market. Like, okay, I think which I think we can all agree on you shouldn't do no matter what. What are your things on? Because, again, we come to this guy has an over 60% winning percentage with Flores or with McDaniel. He has an over 60% winning percentage with and without Tyreek Hill in the lineup. Okay.
Right.
So, listen, I get the whole, this is my big issue. Wins aren't a quarterback stat, but you'll get people that'll come in my chat, go on YouTube or go on X, and Tua is the reason we lose, though. So how can you be the reason we lose, but wins can't be so losses can count on a quarterback and be a quarterback stat, but wins can't be a quarterback stat. So I don't buy into that. If you're gonna blame a quarterback for a loss and you're gonna put losses on a quarterback, then you got to put wins on a quarter. Then wins become a quarterback stat. That's how this works.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this? Because he said, and he's right. A lot of these choosers forget they were beggars for over 20 years, and they think guys like Mahomes or an alien like Lamar or Josh Allen can be plucked off trees in every draft when it doesn't work like that. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, look, I think quarterbacks have a lot to do with wins for sure and losses. And there's also a component that's a team game. But look, Tua's been a winner at a high clip over the last 2 to 3 years. There's no doubt about it. And he's done it with Flores. He's done it with Flores and McDaniel. Variables have changed. Sure, he's got a lot of talent around him. You can even say for Mahomes, he's got one of the best tight ends of all time.
Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase,
right?
T. Higgins, Joe Mixon.
And Lamar Jackson had the most weapons he ever had in his life. I've heard people say the Ravens they have probably 2 of the top 6 tight ends in football on their roster. Like, I think Isaiah Likely's that type of player if he's in a different environment. So I think you need weapons, but look, Tua deserves a contract, and I'm with you. Where I'm thinking is exactly with you. I can't judge it to an extension until I see what those numbers are.
Look like, yeah.
If it's a Lamar Jackson type of deal, I'm happy. If it's Joe Burrow,
Justin Herbert, money,
I honestly think that could be like, hey, this is our last year in this window. That's how big of a jump it could be. So
I agree.
I have to see it. Look, this is liar season in football. This is agents trying to pump up their guys to get them paid. We got to see how it shakes out. I want Tua here for the long haul. I'm on record. There's nobody in the draft. I'll be 100% honest. There's no one in free agency I'd touch to replace Tua. If I could get Caleb Williams, I would take him over Tua, but there's questions there. But that's just because I'd like to reset the contract and I believe in the tools. I'm not taking Drake May over him. I'm not taking Jaden Daniels over him. And I think Tua owes us more later in the season next year. I think his contract isn't an A+ on his report card, but you have to look at the supply of demands in quarterbacks in football. We have a top 10 quarterback in football. What do you want to do? Do you want a chance losing that for a guy that could be 25? Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's, to me, you can't not keep Tua here from a cap situation. Signing him makes sense. Front load the first 2 years of the deal. Next year's quarterback class is awful. Free agency market sucks for quarterback.
That's why a lot of people are going to be moving around for quarterbacks because of how bad next year's.
Bo Nix is going to go in round 1. I've heard Bo Nix is going in round 1.
Buddy, never mind that. Dude, JJ McCarthy looks like he's going to be going top 10.
Top 5.
That's ridiculous.
Watch Minnesota pull a trigger with Chargers.
Yeah, that's what it like. Wow, JJ, like, oh my Lord, like, I'm telling you, man. Like, I think the one that everyone's sleeping on in the top 10 that might actually be really good is a kid I've loved since Arizona State. Watch out for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, he's gonna be good.
Who's gonna like probably catch everyone by surprise when he gets to the next level. He just needs to bulk up. Like,
we're gonna see him. We're gonna see him twice a year, so we'll be ready.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before? Yeah, look at Ricky says, watch the Chargers draft JJ.
Dude, I'm dead serious. Harbaugh, I don't think they'll do this, but it's crazy. Would they trade Herbert for a boatload of picks to the Bears? First 9, their second 2 more first. Go with could you? I mean, I could totally see.
Well, can I be honest with you, bro? I think if Harbaugh I don't think if Harbaugh like wins anything significant, like playoff games or anything in the first 2 or 3 years, I think he goes and gets his own guy.
Yeah,
I think he goes and gets his own guy. Like, people don't understand the pressure is ramped up on Herbert because Herbert has underachieved since year 1. When you look at like, hey, say what you want about Tua. When was the last time you saw us picking 5th overall in the Tua era?
Right.
When was the last time you saw 2 coaches get fired in the Tua era? Let alone see the problem where they screwed up with the Staley and stuff. I think they should have given Anthony Lynn and Pep Hamilton another year with Herbert. Because they got Pep Hamilton was the perfect guy for Herbert. Like, he got him rookie of the year.
I do
they
think
shook that up way too quick.
I think Harbaugh's going to get it right in charge. He's got a good personnel. He's got good. We'll see.
I just don't believe in that franchise. They're like you talk about like, yeah, we haven't been to the Super Bowl and however, but you talk about like when they had Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees and LaDainian Tomlinson. Talk about underachievers. Holy jeez.
Yeah, they are. They're the kings of it with Rivers, especially that Patriots year when they were jumping on the field, stomping on the bolt. That was their chance, I thought.
Yeah, I agree, man. So anything else you want to add before we get out of here, bro?
Nah, man. Fins up. Let's see what happens. I think they're going to start making some moves here soon. I think it's got to happen. And I mean, we're right around the corner from the franchise tag window opening up. I think by the time we connect next week, things are going to start to shake a little bit.
Yeah, and I still think, guys, prepare yourself. I think a 2 extension comes down before free agency hits.
Oh, it has to. It has to.
So yeah, and I think if they're going to work anything out with Tyreek, that's going to come out before free agency hits too, because I know there's been people in the Miami media that are even hinting that a Tyreek extension is probably going to be coming down.
I wasn't guessing.
Yeah, really, eh? So I'll be probably live tomorrow on Friday. Then I'll be live on Sunday. It's my birthday, so we'll do a little birthday stream on Sunday.
Happy birthday.
So I appreciate it. So we'll do a little birthday stream on Sunday. I'll probably be live tomorrow as well. So listen, smash that like button. Do us the favor, subscribe if you're new. I appreciate y'all. We've had over 700 subscribers over the last 28 days. We've had over 77,000 views on my Super Bowl live reaction. So I appreciate all of you for the support this week. And as we head into the thick of things, and man, let's get ready, because let's restructure. Let's create some money, and free agency is right around the corner. As always, fins up until Margaritaville sends the cease and desist. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Take it easy, guys.